Are you a woman standing at a crossroads, eager for change? It's time to connect with your authentic and empowered self at Boss Leap. Join Dr. Sylvia Morris and Dr. Angela Walker in this empowering community where real-life stories of courageous and talented women inspire and motivate. Engage in honest conversations that foster well-being, drawing from our own journeys. Let us guide you toward profound growth and transformation in both your personal and professional life. Here are your hosts, Dr. Sylvia Morris and Dr. Angela Walker.
Welcome back to Boss Leap podcast with Dr. Angela Walker and Dr. Sylvia Morris, my co-host. We are so excited to have you today. We have an amazing guest who is an authority on all things menopause and OBGYN in general, Dr. Dawn Mandeville, who is a board certified OBGYN and also certified by the Menopause Society as a menopause expert. And she will give us so many pearls of wisdom. We talked about all things from sports to leadership to menopause and things beyond. Before we get into the interview, though, we want to keep you on your seats for that. But we did talk a little bit about cocktails as well. Or
I love
mocktails.
a good cocktail, Angela.
So we actually talked about mocktails, but I thought we would start off by kind of thinking outside the box. And Sylvia, you want to start off by telling me if you could be a cocktail, what type of cocktail you would be, what describes you?
So, I love a good cocktail. And probably sometime as we were coming out of the pandemic, I think it was like 2022, maybe, I had the pleasure of being in Phoenix at Sanctuary at Camelback Mountain. And it was my birthday, and shimmied up to the bar, and I asked the bartender to make a cocktail in honor of my birthday. Oh. And without a beat, he made me something called a P-E-N-N Dennis. And a Dennis, I'm looking at my notes here, is gin, apricot liquor, some lime juice, some bitters.
You never told me about this. This sounds good.
Oh, it is fantastic. I didn't know anything about apricot liqueur, and it is just sort of the balance of bitter and sweet, and it comes in this beautiful coupe glass. And just a gorgeous cocktail. It has some weight to it. So if you have, more than one, then it might, get you feeling quite right. But I was just like, oh my God, this is me in a cocktail. It was fantastic. So if you were a cocktail or a mocktail, what would you be?
So the first thing that came to mind for me is a Caipirinha. It's my favorite. Yeah, it's my favorite. It's pretty simple. I think that I probably qualified that way. It's got Persian lime, cane sugar, and cachaca is actually what it's known to have, or sugarcane rum. And you put the lime and the sugar in the glass, muddle that gently. Some kind of mixture of a lot of different qualities, and then put and then you've got your ice, really good amount of ice, and then the cachaca or the sugarcane rum is poured over that, and you've got a very nice, it melts the ice. So it's some people, it's kind of like a mojito without the mint, but it's definitely very different, and it's different than a margarita. But that's my go-to. That's my favorite, and love just thinking about that. But I'm going to try yours. I like anything that has a little bit of sweet and sour. The bitter is the part that gives me pause. But I'm a novice in terms of, all types of drinks. I usually find something, I like it, and I kind of stick with it. So I'm in that, but I'm going to try that one.
Yours is definitely a good one. And I have been to Brazil. If you ever have the opportunity to go to Rio, Salvador, it is just absolutely fantastic. It's probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. So Kashaka, that's good stuff. It's
on my list, but no, I haven't been. So that would be the first thing that I would go to. So we are so looking forward to hearing more about mocktails and menopause. And without further ado, we're going to get into this episode with Dr. Dawn Mandeville today.
So I'm so excited today. We have Dr. Dawn Mandeville. So Dawn, we're just going to get into the conversation immediately. So tell us what you wanted to do when you grew up.
Oh, there's always a story behind everything, but my dad is actually an OBGYN and grew up around medicine. His first office was actually in the basement of my grandmother's house. So we would oftentimes go to her house, have dinner, wait for him to finish office hours, and then we would go to our house, which was half a mile away. But I remember always being told, be quiet, don't run around with your brother because they can hear you in the office, which was downstairs. So, that was commonplace. But my brother and I, of course, would run around and, make all sorts of noise. But we would also role play. And part of that was, and I always wanted to be the doctor, sticking a pillow in his belly and delivering the pillow. So I guess that kind of started the journey, being around medicine, acting out medicine, and thinking, this is what I know. My dad seems to love it. So, it just sort of morphed into that. The road itself, it sounds easy, but as you all know, was not easy at all. I remember going to college and taking organic chemistry and thinking, this is not.
I took that twice.
Well, I almost did. I remember sitting in my room. We had a suite at the time, so I was sitting in the common area, and I was like, this is not working out. So I called my dad. I said, look, this is really hard. I don't know. He said, are we allowed to? We're not allowed to curse on here, but he said, bleep or get off the pot.
Oh,
I said,
boss leave.
I was looking for a little tender loving. He said, or get off the pot. And I said, okay. He said, look, it's not easy. So you've got to decide what it is you want to do. You have to decide on whether this is something you can do, something you want to do. And then I hung up the phone and I was like, okay, I'm going to put my big girl pants on and figure this out. It was hard. Never want to do that again. But I ended up figuring it out. So
I think that's the story of so many of us. I pledged my sophomore year. That was not a great semester. I came in doing well, but then after that, wanting to go to medical school, you got to figure out, okay, how do I make this work? How do I adjust? How do I make it better? And I think that fortitude, it sounds like what you had. Your dad can tell you to do it, but whether or not you had it in you to do it.
You've got to do it. You may have the tools to do it. You may have the support to do it, but ultimately we're the ones taking the test. We're the ones in the lab. We're the ones doing the homework. So, and I was pledging, I think I pledged the spring after that. And actually I got the best grades ever then. I don't know what happened. Maybe they took pity on me. I don't know.
That's awesome.
Did your dad go to an HBCU for medical school?
He did. He went to Meharry. He went to Lincoln University in Pennsylvania.
My mom.
Really?
Well, actually, not my mother. My dad did. My dad's from Reading, Pennsylvania. He went to Lincoln.
Oh, well, they may know each other then. I don't know. But they all actually went to HBCUs. My father, my mother, my brother. I'm the outcast, kind of. I ended
medical school, if I remember.
Well, yes. Eventually, I got it together. But I did an exchange at Spelman College from Wilson, which was a wonderful experience. I think that helped to kind of round me out a lot and showed me where I was comfortable and where I could do not my best, but I can do things well and comfortably. So it was just a different environment.
And you went on to go to Wellesley, which one of our co-authors, Diane, and I think that's how we were introduced.
Exactly.
Tell us how Wellesley shaped you. We certainly have had an earful from Diane, and it just sounded like an amazing, wonderful, beautiful experience for a woman,
Mhm.
going into that phase of life. But tell us your experience and how it
Right.
shaped you.
Um, Wellesley almost didn't happen. Was
Mm.
very much a tomboy and always loved to play with the boys,
Mhm.
needed, and I was athletic, so I could hang with them. And
Mhm.
when the college counselor suggested Wellesley, I didn't know what that was. I kind of sat there and she said, it's an all women's college. And my mother kind of said she felt me kind of stiffen up like this. We needed to
Mhm.
ease into this one. So I looked and I was like, no, thank you. And my
Mhm.
mother was like, just listen to her. And I think she must have seen something in me. And I wish I remember her name. And I really wish I remember the rest of the conversation. But she
Mhm.
must have seen something in me that she felt that environment would be
Yeah.
advantageous, would be
Mhm.
something that was good for me. I fought it for a while because I said, there's no way in the world I'm going to go to an all girls college. And I said it
Mhm.
like that. Of course, your parents have other ideas. They convinced me to at least look at the campus.
Mhm.
Campus is right outside of Boston, about
Mhm.
3.5 hours from New York, so it was close enough. Um, I went and I said, okay. I was trying to not play my cards to my mom, but I was like, okay, it's nice. It's nice. And then they said
Mhm.
they had a great sports center, or yeah, sports center.
Mhm.
And obviously, I'm into sports, and I said, well, that's a plus.
Mhm.
And the biggest thing was that I saw enough faces of color walking around. I said, oh,
Mhm.
okay, all right, well, let me think about it. It turned out it's probably one of the best colleges that I got into. And I kind of put it all together and went with my gut and said, you know what? I will get over and I say all girls thing. Now I say all women's, but I will get over that and see what happens. And I will tell you, as I look back at it, hands down, that
Mhm.
place was a great place for me. It is a place that I still look back on and have wonderful experiences, have friends from there that I still talk to. I think that is a place that you have all these women, even though it was academically rigorous, it was a place of support. So you worked hard, but you were also supported well.
Mhm.
Physics, first year physics almost took me out. Phyllis Fleming, I went to her discombobulated and she sat me down and I ended up getting a B minus and I was like, thank you, Jesus, you know,
Yes.
and I had not seen a B. And so that was kind of traumatic, but I got through it. She helped me through it. When I was online, I had calculus and Mr. Wilcox. I would go and he would, sit down with me. He knew something was up. He didn't quite know why I had the little cap on and why I was dressed like that, but he sat down and helped me through it. So the support there was awesome. And also it wasn't really a level of competition. It
Mhm.
seemed like we were all there to learn.
Mhm.
It seemed like it was a very empowering place, a place of strength, a place that they wanted you to be a leader, but it wasn't
Mhm.
taught. You kind of
Mhm.
felt it and you
Wow.
manifested it. And a lot of this I'm realizing after the fact.
Mhm.
I didn't sit there and say I'm being taught to be a leader. No, you just manifested it. The people around you, the things that they did, the things that they said, ended up kind of you embodied that and went with that. And then I would say a couple of things. The tennis team. I played tennis growing up, not competitively because I didn't like it. I didn't like tournaments, but I
Mhm.
was good enough to play well. So when I got there, I saw that there were sign-ups or tryouts for tennis team. So I was like, well, I play tennis. Let me see what happens. So
Mhm.
I go and I try out and I made the team. I was like, I made the team. So I call my parents. I made the team. Made the team? Yes, I made the team. The other person I called was my uncle. My
Mhm.
uncle was actually a professional tennis player and won actually a couple of major tournaments
Mhm.
like Wimbledon and US Open way back in the day.
So Don,
Okay.
please, you can't just
I
say,
know.
And not
by the
drop the
way.
name.
So it's like, is Arthur
So
at, if you,
so I say my uncle. We have uncles and aunts that are not blood,
absolutely,
but
yes.
they're blood. So Arthur S was one of my father's best friends.
Wow.
Wow.
So I grew
Oh, that's
up
wonderful.
You
my
did play
formative years
tennis.
around that. And
Truly
by then
inspiring.
he had stopped playing tennis, I think. But also his wife was also sort
Mm-hmm.
of a mentor to me. I loved hanging out with Jeannie. Jeannie was cool. She was a photographer. She was beautiful. I just kind of was like, this is really cool. So they kind of helped me in terms of life lessons. And also, I had a moment, a summer where I didn't know what to do. And they said, well, what do you love to do? I said, I like to play tennis. Okay, well, let's find a place for you to play tennis. So, anyway, they were the second group of people that I called. And
Mm.
I remember
Wow.
getting a tennis racket in the mail from
Mm-hmm.
Arthur that was like the fancy graphite. Graphite was the name
Yes.
then.
Yes.
And that was kind of like his, saying, yeah, you did a good job. Now go do a better job.
Wow.
And you still have that racket, right?
I have that racket. It's, I can,
Okay, I'm
I'll
just
run downstairs. I
okay.
have that racket. It's like an aqua
That.
green, pink strings in it. They've gotten
Wow.
changed. But
Mhm.
anyway, those sorts of things. And then tennis itself, being on a tennis team,
Mhm.
or let me just say going to college and trying to figure out college and the
Mhm.
newness of it, being in a
Mhm.
dorm, being with a roommate from Kerrville, Texas.
Oh
Um,
wow. That must have been
it's
culture shock.
it was for both of us, and
Mm-hmm.
we didn't know what we were going to get, but we are the best of friends still. All of that, but the tennis team helped to structure my life. You
Okay.
knew that you had to eat, go to class, study, go to practice, eat, study, and go to bed. So it really helped to focus and structure my life. And besides that, some of my best friends are from the tennis team.
Mhm.
I don't know if Diane has
Wow.
ever told you about Ginger. Ginger was on one of our sorority sisters, and she was on the
Mm-hmm.
tennis team. When I made the tennis team, they kept asking, do you know Ginger? Have you met Ginger?
Mhm.
What about
Mhm.
Ginger? Well, I don't know who Ginger is.
Mm-hmm.
I had a
Well,
suspicion.
you must know Ginger. We know what Ginger is, but
Right.
yes.
I had a suspicion I knew what Ginger looked like.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
So she was on exchange in Spain. That's first semester that I got there, and she came
mhm.
back in the spring, and we became the best of friends.
Mhm.
She was 2 years ahead of me. I looked up to her. She introduced me to her friends who were a little older, so I was hanging with an older crowd. She introduced me to the Sisterhood of Delta Sigma Theta, and just was always a great friend. Unfortunately, she got sick. And her sickness, though, did not stop her. She
Mhm.
would keep traveling. She would keep doing, she'd get her surgeries, she'd have her heart valve put in, she'd get bowel resection, all of these things. And she would keep moving. She would keep doing things.
Wow.
So when obviously she kept doing it so much so until she got so sick she couldn't do anything else. But even then, she was trying to do things, run things, and tell people things. But I would say that that's part of my Wellesley experience, learning
Mhm.
perseverance and
Mm.
learning that, no matter what's in front of you, you have to deal with it head on. And she will always be someone that I look at and just remember. I think about her every day, that she shaped a lot of my life in many different ways. But perseverance was probably the biggest thing that I would say came out of Wellesley for many reasons.
Wow,
That's
what a
such a
beautiful
beautiful
story.
answer.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I find myself saying beautiful so much on this podcast, looking at transcripts. But I mean, everybody's story is just so different in how they're shaped. But what I heard from you is something I think we should all be trying to find when we're, if you're, well, really in any particular situation, whether it's higher education, whether it's in your job, to have support, not necessarily competition, to feel like you're, always competing, and, to have a place where you feel like leadership is fostered, and not, squashed. Yeah, I can't think of a better way to, go through school than the environment that you described. So thank you for sharing.
And Dawn, I have to share with you, I'm a huge tennis fan. I'm an awful, awful player. But one of my best sports experience, I've been to the US Open a couple times. It's for me, it's the best. I've never been to the Super Bowl. But the US Open, just being on the grounds and being able to kind of sit and see the huge screens and going into Armstrong Stadium or Arthur Ashe, I just think it's fantastic. And I saw the Williams sisters, so I was like on cloud
That's it.
nine. But thank you for sharing your story about tennis. But I think what came to my mind is women supporting women. So you went to a women's college, and now you practice OBGYN. As my question is, over sort of the totality of your experiences, how do you think that women can better support women, in particular in this sort of climate in which we live now?
Because the climate, I'm going to put the climate to the side for a second.
Okay.
You know, as I think about these things, it's always I'm pulling from my past because I live in the present and I forget what happens until I'm asked about it or until I sit down and think about it. But I don't know if we celebrate ourselves enough. You know, just doing this podcast is a celebration. And when you asked me to do it, I was like, well, me for what? Why? You know, what is there? And then I kind of look back at things. I'm like, oh, well, that was cool. I did something pretty cool. Oh, I'm doing some things. So celebrating our sisters or our girlfriends, celebrating ourselves, we have to keep that in mind. We have to keep that in the front of our brain and acknowledging the things that we do. We do so many things that we don't realize we do. And it's not like we're going through the motions, but we're doing it because we know how to do it. We know it needs to be done. So with that, we don't know we're doing it until we get in the bed and try to go to sleep and say, wow, that was a busy day, or this was a week. But I think in terms of supporting each other, being more intentional about seeing how we're doing, being intentional about giving advice or just being there to be the sounding board for someone, checking in. As I was thinking about this, I have about 4 or 5 texts that I sent yesterday to say, how you doing? Because I thought, and I'm thinking, I don't want to do it as a response to something.
Right.
Trying to be more intentional about doing it proactively. And that's really hard because we're trying to live our lives and we're busy. And also as perimenopause, menopause sets in, you forget things. And so you have to literally write lists to say, you know, do this, do that. Even though you're thinking of those people, the day gets away from you sometimes. And I truly believe that because it's happened to me that, you know, when you say this climate, you know, medicine is difficult, being a mom is difficult, being a wife is difficult, being a doctor is difficult. But again, we push through it.
Being a citizen is difficult. Sorry, I had to add that.
Yeah, being a woman, did I say that or did I encompass all of that? But about a year and a half ago, my partner in my medical practice, we had gone through a lot of turmoil. Emory bought the hospital. We had some long-term partner left. You know, you have life, you have marriage, you have kids, all of that stuff. And I was just moving. And I must have said something a few days before that. And I remember her coming into my office before office hours and she closed the door. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And she said, are you all right? And that was the first time that I paused and I said, no. And I remember that. And, you know, I'm not going to cry here, but
safe space
changed my life. She checked in on me and she needed to. And that changed the trajectory of my life in terms of, you know, slowing down. We can't do it all, even though we think we can. But now the perspective has changed. So checking in, even though you don't know what's going on, you may have an inclination what's going on, even if you think everything's fine. Checking in and being genuine about it.
Yeah. So important. And I think as we get older, we're realizing that. But if we can impart that to our younger sisters to do that, you know, for each other and even to check in on them, you know, the young ones that are coming up and continue to mentor them. So very excellent excellent advice. So before we move on, because I really want to talk about menopause as an OBGYN myself, the thought, and I think it sounds like our tracks are similar. I finished residency in 2001, started practicing, and we came about at a stage where medical school residency, we learned about hormone replacement, and you need to be on this for the rest of your life. It'll help prevent yada, yada, yada. And then a year into, my practice, it's nothing. Nobody would give it. And, we're examining the literature, but I will be honest, and I've listened to, some of your work, and it's just all true. We didn't learn a lot in medical school. And I don't think there's enough attention to it now. Just like lifestyle medicine, something, that is, so there's so many things that we just didn't learn in medical school and residency, but you are shouting it now, which is wonderful. Tell us how you got into this space. Not that you haven't been talking about menopause, all of your career, but I know that you really have a big focus now and are shedding a lot of light for so many women. Tell us what that has looked like for you.
So just like what you said, there's a whole generation of women and practitioners who know nothing about menopause. And when the rug was pulled out from under us in 2002, I don't know about you, but I was like, well, it's bad. They said it's bad, so let me take care of the other things.
And we're talking about hormone replacement therapy for
hormone
those of us
therapy.
who are not OBGYNs or physicians.
Yes.
So the thought is that they did a study. We thought hormones were advantageous and beneficial to women, but then the study came out and said, no, it's bad. They've since tracked back that information and realized there were way more benefits to hormone therapy than there are risks. So as you know, we all have those girlfriends. And I have a girlfriend who I met while on exchange at Wellesley. On exchange at Spelman. She came from Bryn Mawr. And we're still tight today. We talk a lot. Well, she called me out. She said, why didn't you all tell us what we were going to expect? Why didn't you tell us this? And this is that friend. The neck is rolling, the hands are on the hips. She doesn't do this anymore because I told her she can't point in my face anymore.
Exactly.
That's that friend who doesn't hold back. If she feels like she needs to tell you something, she's going to tell you something. So I got a little offended. No, I got a lot of offended. I jumped back just as hard as she jumped toward me. I said, now listen, we are trying to make sure the pap smears are done, the colonoscopies are done, the bone densities are done, the mammograms are done. We're trying to make sure that the fibroids, if they have fibroids, how are we managing that? Bleeding, babies, are the babies okay? We've got African-American women who are dying 3 to 4 more times as anybody else. We're trying to keep our patients alive. You want me to just, by the way, say, hey, you may have a perimenopausal symptom? So we had a little beef. We didn't talk for a little bit. We went at each other, and I was like, you know what? I think we need to end this conversation. So we didn't speak for a couple of weeks. But then I started to think, she's right. She's right. This is, and maybe it was the time of our lives. This was only 2.5 years ago, but maybe it was because of where we were in life. And I said, she's right. I ain't going to tell her she's right away, but she's right. So I started thinking, how can I pivot in my practice to be able to get more information to my patients? And all along, I had been trying to fit everything in an annual. Patients wanted everything fit in an annual. As you know, an annual, 10, 12, 15 minutes tops. I started saying, hey, come on back. I'm going to invite you back, and we'll talk all about perimenopause. We'll talk all about menopause, and we'll start the conversation. And not one person has said, no, I can't come back. And so that was a pivot for me. That, wow, they want to come back. Okay. Then I started learning about it, and I was like, look at all this information that we have not been giving to our patients. Look at all the stuff that I ignored over time. And that made me start thinking about patients. Certain instances would come up. I've called about 4 or 5 patients to apologize because I know what they were telling me. What I know, I said, oh, couldn't be, was it? And we've cried on the phone and they thanked me, and I said, no, thank you, because this is a part of my evolution. And I've gone into it head first, and I love it. I feel like there's a lot to learn. I feel like helping women they appreciate just being heard,
Absolutely.
alone been giving whatever medicine. It doesn't have to be hormonal medicine. Knowing their options. My goal is to give them options so that they can make a decision about their health going forward. And it's not all about hormones. It's not all about hot flashes and that there's so many that you could feel hot flashes, you can feel your brain fog, you can feel your sleep deprivation, but you can't feel your bone loss, you can't feel your insulin resistance, you can't feel your arteries thickening, you can't feel plaques form. There's so much other stuff in midlife that we need to know to help save our lives because cardiovascular health or disease is the thing that's taking us out. So
Number one
you
killer
need
of
to be
women.
treating that. So,
And for Black women, proportionately higher,
right.
disproportionate. Yeah. So so many things. And I can echo what you're saying. And not only did we not learn about it, and, really get a lot of information. And then, certainly once we came out in practice, it was squashed. So it was like, okay, well, we'll take that off the plate. But it wasn't necessarily relevant to us at that stage. And I certainly have always, I think I've been empathetic to a patient's plight when they say, how miserable they are. But until you feel some of that,
You have
no
no idea.
idea.
Right.
And
And my journey is a little bit interesting in that I was on the birth control pill until 45, until I got
Wow.
a pulmonary embolism. That's a whole nother story. I'm sure we don't have enough time for that. But I stopped the birth control pill and then didn't get a menstrual cycle back. Like, what's going on? What happened? And I checked a menopausal test and I was in the menopausal range. And that shocked me. And a whole lot of other things were going on at that time that I just sort of however I felt, I blamed it on that. Ginger getting sick, my daughter coming out, my my grandmother who was 100 years old was fading. Relationship marriage was not great. So I'm thinking all these things that I'm feeling are because of menopause. I'm sorry, because of life, not menopause. So anyway, I'm looking back now and basically saying, wow, a lot of those things, I'm connecting those dots. M factor. The
Yes.
M
Yes,
factor.
please
Talk to us
tell us.
about
We
the
want to
impact,
learn.
where we can see it,
Yes.
how we can
So
support it, all of that.
the
Tell us all
M
about it.
Factor is a documentary about menopause. It basically looks at women's experiences, healthcare providers' experiences as they navigate menopause. And they talk about the difficulties that they have and have had, and the misconceptions and the confusion, and quite frankly, the disappointment that we have in terms of the research or lack thereof. And it's not something to say, here's how we fix it. It's a sounding board. It's a springboard. It's a way for women and men to say, oh my goodness, this is terrible. Let's start talking about it. My goal is to talk about it. I think if you talk about it, people will listen, might listen. If you yell about it, they have no other way but to listen to you. So I'm just trying to use my voice and use whatever modalities I have to get that information out. So, as you know, on social media, there are a lot of influencers, a lot of people who are in the menopausal space, and most of them are not of color. They give great information for the most part, but they're not of color. And when this documentary came out, one of the biggest, I don't, it's not an influencer, one of the biggest women in menopausal information and education said that she was going to fill a theater of 800 women to watch this documentary. And it was out in Washington State. And she filled that theater and she showed all the pictures on social media. And I had to take my glasses off, put my glasses back on, and I didn't see any color.
Where are we?
And I said, I know, no, 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 no. I can't do this. I can't have us miss the boat again. So I got an idea to say, and they were allowing people to do screening. So I said, well, let's do an Atlanta screening. I called a friend and I said, do you know who could help? Who's in this? And we started the process of getting it screened here in Atlanta. I have rented a theater. My goal is to fill 350 seats. It was supposed to be last Tuesday, but the snow had other plans.
The second snow in Atlanta, it should not have happened.
I mean, I
Personally.
canceled it an hour and a half before because I was going to have that screening. They had to kind of pull me down from the cliff and say, no,
Yeah.
we can't have it because I wanted it to happen. I was excited for it to happen. But the snow and ice changed that. So we have a new date, and that's March
So
9th.
I have to admit,
Mhm.
I was selfishly excited because now I can come because I really wanted to come, but I was out of town for that. And so I certainly, I'm going to let you finish, but at the end, we want to let the audience know how to purchase tickets if it's not already sold out. But yeah, so exciting. Tell us.
Everything happened for a reason, right? So I think
Yes.
there'll be far more people there than might have
Yes.
been last week. So yes.
Yes. And not only are you hosting M Factor, but you also you've been doing this for a while now, the menopause and mocktails. Is that right? So I want you to tell us about what that looks like, and then tell us what type of mocktail would you be if you could be one.
Or cocktail.
Cocktail, but
Okay.
knowing that I kind of jumped into all this, my mind, just kind of keeps going, and in the middle of the night I think about things. But as I mentioned, 2023 was a tough year, and I decided I needed to get away to get my mind right. So I went to Miraval, which is
Oh,
sort of a
yes.
retreat place, and I went to the one in Austin all by myself.
Yes.
Put the phone down, and just enjoyed myself, enjoyed the people around me, enjoyed the nature, enjoyed classes. And one of those classes ended up being a cocktail class. I actually ended up taking two, but I realized that cocktails are not just liquor or liquor. It's a lot more. It's a balance of flavors, of aromas, of textures. And I thought it was really cool because it was kind of like science. You can put it together. And I was like, this is really cool. So I left there. Before I left, I asked the guy, what books would you recommend? And I bought one of the most common books. And then I said, well, I'm really into this menopause. Oh, wait, menopause and mocktails.
There you
Hey,
go.
yeah. I was like, what can I do? But I need to know more information before I do that. So 6 months later, I had created a whole slide program. I started inviting patients first and then anybody else. We have a lower level in our office. So I have about 10, 15 years, about 15 women come. We have little hors d'oeuvres. I make the mocktails. I shake them up and I pour them, and then we engage. And we talk about really intimate things. We talk about what's happening in life, what's happening to their bodies. I give them a little journal so that they can start writing this down, because I think writing things down, you can always look back on it and hopefully say, I'm in a better place than I was, or, I'm not in the place where I was. So I have found it to be therapeutic for me too. I think it's helped a lot of people, but it's therapeutic. The one that I'm having that also got canceled last week, this is a big one. So I'm doing it at my hospital, and I have 75 people. It's actually 78 because I might have oversold it a little bit, but it's going to be a big one. And I have a patient who actually owns a mocktail company, and she's supplying that. I have another, so I'm kind of highlighting Black women business owners who has a charcuterie business, the mocktail business, and then a dessert business. So going to highlight them as well.
Oh, wow. That sounds awesome.
Fantastic.
So come on by.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It's interesting you said Miraval, one of the places that we kind of started editing our book that we wrote with Diane and our two other classmates. I can remember sitting around a table there for one of our annual girls trips. But you bring up something that I think is really important is, taking care of yourself. And so you took that time and to just be by yourself, which is huge because you can be with your own thoughts, not anyone else interjecting. And then a lot of times you are able to, kind of come out of your fog or come up with ideas, or just sleep and relax and recharge. And so that sounds like a very good form of self-care. Do you have any other things that you do on a regular basis that form your self-care regimen?
But before, you didn't tell us if you were a cocktail or a mocktail.
Oh, that's right.
So, let's see, maybe about a year ago, and I wish I could show you. I have this. I write down the recipes of the good ones, and there's one called a strawberry jalapeno margarita.
Margarita.
I like a little liquor, but it has a lot of components that I think are my characteristics. I like to say that the strawberry is my sweetness. Some people may disagree. The jalapeno is I'm a little fiery and I'm a little hot sometimes. I do put some tahini on the rim, so that's the part. And then you've got a little liquor to make it kind of feel good. So I would be a strawberry jalapeno margarita if I were.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
So what other self-care practices do you engage in?
The easiest thing is taking a walk.
Yes.
I will walk, the neighborhood. So it is 1 mile to La Vista Road and 1 mile back. So that's my 2-mile walk. And then we have other loops that we can take. I'll put my AirPods on and I'll listen to a podcast or music, but usually a podcast because I want to have some information in my head.
So Boss Sleep podcast is on your list now.
Yes, it is. It is several, and I am intrigued by the strength of the women that you've had on this podcast, and just the stories that they've told, and the lightness in which they've told them, and and the relaxed nature. But they are bosses. Everybody you've had on here have been bosses, so I feel very flattered to be among your guests. Because I guess I have to be told that I'm a boss because sometimes I don't manifest that, but I'm going to manifest it more. I'm going to manifest it.
Right. That's right. Well, you certainly are.
I also take a dance class called Rebel Groove, and it's sort of a hip hop dance class. When my knee is acting right, I do it quite often, but it is liberating. You go in there and you shake everything. And there's nothing you can wear whatever you want. You could touch whatever you want. It's just a time to have a good time, sweat, good music, and and good camaraderie. I've made very good friends from that class. And the other thing is I've given up tennis and now I play golf. So golf is my thing. It's kind of like if you say squirrel and somebody looks around, if they say golf, I'm there. So I love to play golf. I get my exercise playing golf because I will walk.
You walk.
With the bag on, walk the course. As you know, I may be a little bit competitive. So I'm competitive. I play mostly with guys. They may offer, do you want to play for money? I'm like, whatever you want. I have a very close friend that we play match play. So match play doesn't matter what your handicap is, it will equal out. We have what's called the Mandeville Smith Cup. And whoever wins gets to hold the Mandeville Smith Cup. So he has it right now.
You're going to get it back.
I'm going to get it back. But yes, it's a lovely competition that we have. So I love golf. It's frustrating, but when you hit that one good shot, that's what keeps you coming back.
Well, we definitely have a lot in common. Those are all great, not only just self-care, but as you know, with menopause, you're staying active, you're doing new things. So it's good for your brain because you're learning new things, but you're moving to things that you love to do. And I think that's what we try to encourage our patients to find something that maybe you haven't done it before, but something interesting that you will continue to do. And certainly golf is one of those things that's on my list. I've played when my baby was a baby. My husband is an avid golfer, so I will not play with him. But that's on my list now that I have, kind of taken some steps back and can breathe a little bit in what I'm doing and practice and such. I think just the movement that you're talking about. I would love to find a hip hop class. That's one of the things that I'm looking for. But tell us also, one of the things I found interesting about you, again, we just kind of very much aligned. I love photography, and I have like so many pictures on my iPhone, but I don't, my daughter has the big camera, but it sounds like you've been passionate about photography for a while. Tell us how that was started. And it sounds like I heard something in the beginning that may have been a while back that you became interested.
So that's one of those winding roads. The basic thing was that I wanted to take pictures of the kids at school, concerts, sports, all of that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how I started. I guess people saw some of my pictures and they said, "Oh, well, you need to charge money." And I was like, "Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay." Well, because the particular person who said that wanted me to take pictures of her granddaughter. And so I started looking at YouTube. How do you do newborn photography? And I said,
Mm-hmm.
well, I could deliver a baby and then take the baby's pictures, but babies don't listen. You
Mm-hmm.
can't say smile and smile, and
Not at all.
so that turned out to be really, really hard. But in
Mm-hmm.
terms of photography itself, I think again, it's that technical part of my brain wanting to know why things work. That's one thing. But also making people smile and making people know that they are beautiful when they don't think
Mm-hmm.
so. So
Yes.
when I do headshots and you've got somebody who's a little bit pensive and I'll take a few shots and I'll say, well, here, look. And they're like, wow, oh, that's me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, that's
Yeah.
you. That's you.
Yeah.
So I would say 9.9 times out of 10, that's how I get them to say, wow, okay, let me relax. And they
Mm-hmm.
relax, and then it generally goes really well, and they're excited about their pictures. The other thing is, as my kids grew up, it kept me out of trouble on the fields and on the courts because
You're
I would
that mom?
I'm that my husband and I have to sit separately still. Perhaps I might have gotten kicked out of a church fourth grade basketball game. I don't
Allegedly.
allegedly. So I get excited. Taking pictures helped to calm me down. So at least I would be away from people when I would mutter what I needed to mutter. I would be able to literally just be away and be within myself and not get as excited because my eyes were behind the lens. And the other part of that, I allowed people to, at the time, I would print them way back in the day. I would print them and give them, but now I put them on my website and people can just download them. And so I think it's a way for them to memorialize their child's upbringing. So I still love doing it. Obviously, I'm doing a lot of other things right now. So the camera's
Mhm.
been in that bag for a little bit. But I
Mm-hmm.
turn that lower level of my office into a studio when I need to. And I put it up and I break it down. I put stuff away and I keep rolling, but I really still enjoy doing it.
That's
You are
inspiring to
rolling.
me. Yes,
Absolutely.
what a boss. I love it.
So before we're going to ask you one last question before we get you out of here. And what I would like to know, and I know our audience would too, is what advice would you give your younger self?
I thought about that I've been thinking about that, thought about it, and it's interesting. I look at it as not giving it myself, but that advice would be the advice I've given my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
So if it were myself, I'm living through my daughters now, who are 22 and 25 years old. And
And
oh my goodness, we're
we'll talk.
okay. Yes, we'll talk. But not I think, I know that the things that have gotten me where I am today are because of my parents and what I've told them. So, and what they've told me. But the biggest thing is, as young Black women, you have to know that everybody's looking at you and they're not necessarily looking at you in a favorable way. So you have to present yourself in a favorable way. You have to make sure that you're dressed appropriately. You have to make sure that you speak, as my dad says, the Queen's English. You have to be able to be confident. If you study and you're prepared, you're confident. If you're confident, you're going to be successful. And I think the confidence part of that is what has allowed them to get where they are today. I also tell them, and this is something that I have learned, is to give grace. And they've probably taught this to me more than I've taught it, but to give grace because we don't know what's going on in people's heads. in their lives, anything. And if we jump to conclusions, we will probably be off base. If we count somebody out, we will be off base because we didn't take the time to see what the real story was. And we talk about that quite often, and we bounce that back on and off of each other because it's something that you have to continually remind yourself of. Give grace and be intentional about that, and be intentional about anything that you do, because you're being watched, because you need to make sure that one, you're okay. But again, that person next to you, you don't know what's going on in their lives. So give them grace if they say something or do something, and then keep moving. But keep moving in a forward path. They have amazed us with what they have done. We couldn't be any prouder of them. Obviously we gave them the foundation, but they have done everything that we've asked them to do and everything that we wanted them to do, and they've done it by themselves. Yes, we've paid for everything, but they really have done very well. And when I see them in action or talking to people, I look and I say, oh my goodness, wow, she sounds really wow. I just sit back in amazement that's my kid. That's my kid.
That's
Very, very blessed and proud of them.
nice. That's a great way to end. I think, obviously our kids are our legacy, and a mother of daughters, I have the same, sentiments. It's just finding, in addition to finding your happy place, and but always doing your best, and being of service to others. And I think part of being of service to others is giving them grace. As you mentioned, you just don't know what someone's going through, and then what a life, lesson to learn early is that, somebody's having. My philosophy is it's them, not me. Somebody is going off, or they're acting out. I cannot take it personally, because most of the time it's them. It's not me. So
Right.
thank you so much. We need to have you back, and definitely we want you to share. And we'll certainly put in our show notes, but wherever our audience can reach you, because you have such important information. I know Instagram, and
Daughter has told me that you're supposed to like and follow. And
yes,
it's Dr. Dawn Mandeville on Instagram. And I have a website as well. It's Dr. So Dr. hyphen Dawn Mandeville. And my daughter's my media specialist now. She doesn't quite know it, but she's been guiding me. She's been absolutely awesome. But she's helped me to do what I'm supposed to do on the social media aspect, to be able to spread the word that I want to spread.
We'll tell her she's doing a great job.
Exactly.
I will.
And we may need to engage her services for Boss Lead podcast.
She's
Talk
there.
offline.
She's there. Yeah.
All right.
I
Thank you.
thank you all. I want to thank you, because this is awesome. This is empowering. I want this to leap for women of all ages, to even younger women, because I think if they hear this, they will embody it, and they know that this is something that they can do. So thank you all for having this podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you soon, attending your events, and hopefully doing some other things, maybe a little bit of hip hop. I can't say tennis. I'm glad you're not doing that, but maybe golf. So
Okay, will do. All right.
All right, Dawn. Thank you.
Dr. Mandeville, may you be well. So, Angela, we learned so much from Dr. Mandeville. There are so many take homes, and she was just dropping information throughout our conversation. So what really resonated with you?
I think most of all, I was just pretty much in awe. She's a very multifaceted person, and actually has a lot of the same interests that I do, but she's actually accomplished some of them that I haven't been able to, or haven't made the time to.
We are all on our own path.
Absolutely.
Dr. Walker.
Absolutely. So no, yeah, I'm with her actually, because one of the points is I'm moving forward, not focusing on the past. So not, I'm saying this to say she was inspiring to me. So it gave me some inspiration to go out and do some of the things. And golf is on my list this year to.
You're on your own with that one. My dad's not allowed the golf. Yes.
So we could do putt-putt or something, but yeah, that's on my list. But moving forward, I got that from the beginning. She, is not focused on the past, but moving in a forward motion, not only mentally, but physically and in activities. Love of life came up, and the importance of perseverance. And I think we as women have to teach that we can have all of the tools in our toolbox, but we have to find and dig deep within ourselves to actually make things happen. Mm-hmm. And so certainly in our current environment, cannot rely on others. We can rely on sisterhood and the people around us that we love and trust. But other than that, we've got to dig deep and make things happen and believe in yourself that you can do these things. And I think just having, a good sounding board and checking in with others, the importance of that and being intentional about doing that, because you never know when somebody is, we learn this as we get old, somebody's on your mind. At least I've learned it. Reach out. There's a reason. And whatever you believe, whether it's God or the universe, there's typically a reason. And I'm always just appreciative when someone has sent me a message or picked up the phone just to call, hey, you were on my mind. So don't ignore those nudges that you're getting.
So
how about you?
Checking in authentically, I think is really important. And, sometimes we can schedule it almost. I know that's not as fun, but at the beginning of the month or the end of the month, who are your list of people that you want to check in with, or your list of mentees, and just sending, hey, how are you? My favorite expression, are you good? Because that allows space for someone to say, yes, I'm okay. No, I'm not. Maybe we follow that up with a phone call or meeting or whatever it happens to be.
I like that.
But Dr. Mandeville gave me so many things to kind of think about that I know will resonate with our audience. My favorite expression is when her dad asked her told her, either you leap or you get off the pot. I'm using the word leap. It was a different word.
Yes.
But that importance of you're in it, what you're going to do. So that goes back to your take home as far as perseverance. Yes. Are you going to move forward? She talked also about keep moving forward. And I'm a huge tennis fan. So her talking about tennis and how she used sport or tennis in particular to give the rest of her life structure. I think that's important because whatever we are grounded to, that can really allow us to be successful. So we had lots of great conversations and just pearls of wisdom from Dr. Mandeville. And I'm so excited to learn about the M Factor.
Yes.
And please check that out online and make sure you go and support the M Factor.
Absolutely. Plan to be there. Bells on. So excited for the listeners to listen to this episode and have something to look forward to even afterwards. So until we meet again, Sylvia, thank you for your friendship, and to our audience, may you be well.
May you be well.
That's a wrap on another episode of Boss Leap. May this conversation enlighten your path toward personal growth and professional empowerment. For more thought-provoking and eye-opening discussions like this one, head to our website at bossleappodcast.com. Always remember to celebrate your wins and trust yourself. A positive mindset can push you out of your comfort zone and into far greater heights. Until next time, may you be well.
Before we go, there's one more thing the lawyers have asked us to include. You know, it's the legal language. And you know how doctors love lawyers. This podcast is presented only for educational and entertainment purposes. Although we are doctors, on this show, we are just your friends. This podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of your physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals. Understood? Awesome. We'll see you in the next episode.